Welcome back again. So now I'm on to my favorite part of the project, which is engine wiring and getting the ECU connected to the car. So I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to explain to you what I'm building here and how I'm going to go about it. So I was looking around online to see if I could buy an LS engine harness, and those are pretty cheap if you get a Chinese one, which is what I would do. And then I realized that I have an engine harness on this car for a small block Chevy. So I think I'm probably going to have to modify any engine harness I end up with. So why not modify the one that's on the car? Now there are some differences. Like the LS has separate coils for each cylinder, whereas the LT1 had a single coil. Some of the temperature sensors are different, the injector plugs are different, that kind of stuff. But I was going to run into that kind of no matter what. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to modify the LT1, the original LT1 wiring harness, to make it work with this Speeduino ECU. So I just 3D printed a case for this. You can see some of my wires inside. I'm still trying to figure out exactly where this is going to be located. The original ECU was kind of right here. These are the original plugs. So the original ECU would kind of be in this area here. I was thinking about trying to mount this up here somehow. I'm not real happy with any location I came up with where I was doing something like that. This ECU case is not weatherproof, at least not if it's sitting this way. If it's sitting this way, it is pretty weatherproof because this is all printed as one piece. So if water were to hit it on the top, if it's down in here or angled like this, or even if it's horizontal like that, I think that would work fine. I really don't want to have an issue with the ECU getting wet on the inside. So this is ABS, so it could be under the hood, and that would be fine from a temperature standpoint. I may print a new end, this green end, that's a little more weather tight. I do still need to have my USB port accessible. So really, ideally, I think if it was in the engine bay, it would be mounted like this. I had another idea, and that was maybe to put it where the driver's side front speaker used to be. Like in here like this. But then you got to get through the firewall, and there's really not a great way to do that. There's a hole where the cruise control cable came through, or not the cable, the vacuum hose came through underneath the brake booster here. That could be a possibility. The issue is that it comes out like right under. The wires would have to go behind the clutch pedal, and I'm afraid they're gonna not fit through there and allow the clutch pedal to move like it needs to. I did spot this plug here, so maybe there's a possibility I could run from the interior through here and then make a hole in here and come up. Still trying to figure that part out. So I'm going to get started doing this. I do have a pin out basically to connect this ECU to this harness. So I'm going to end up just cutting these off and splicing jumpers between here and here. I couldn't find anywhere that I could find a mating plug for this. Otherwise I would just plug this into an adapter, and build a jumper harness. It's sort of useless to do that though, because this car is never going to run on the original ECU which is the only thing that would really use these plugs. So why would I keep them? It doesn't make a lot of sense. I'll just splice the wires here and then come to the ECU plug directly, and that'll work out pretty good, I think. I did start splicing my truck injector connectors in because the LT1 injectors have a connector like this, and the truck injectors have a connector like this. So I just cut off I think those are EV1 connectors for the little Delphi connectors. And then I really like these. I can get them out here. I really like these little brass open barrel connectors or splice connectors. These seem to work pretty well. They're easy to crimp, and then you put a piece of shrink tubing over them, and you can extend wires as needed. I'll have to splice onto the coil wires. I'll just keep this original sub harness. Let's see, which ones are they? These two connectors are for the, this one's the throttle position sensor, this one is the idle air control, and those are on the other side on the LS throttle body. So I'm gonna have to extend those to go under and get over to that side, but they are the correct plugs, I believe, so that's kind of nice. I'll reuse the stock intake air temp sensor, and I was able to reuse the LT1 air filter and intake hoses. You can just barely squeeze this original hose onto this 92mm throttle body, and then the original setup would have had a mass airflow sensor here, but since I'm not using that, this is going to be speed density. I just took a piece of 3-inch PVC pipe and clamped it in there, and that seems like it's going to work pretty good. And as you can see, it fits perfect. The LT1 intake was actually a little bit taller, maybe by an inch or something. So this is all going to fit under the hood really well. And it's just a matter of getting everything spliced over here on the engine side. I will do that first, and then I'll figure out where the ECU goes, and then I'll make my splices on that side, and we should be off and running. So I'm hopeful that this will work out okay. Like I mentioned, I do have everything planned out, what I need to connect and wire colors and what I need to intercept from those plugs over there. So it should be okay. I'll give you an update when I get along here a little bit further. I did fiddle around for hours and hours, and I wanted to show you where I'm at here. So I did mount the ECU on this bracket that I found in a scrap metal bin. That just mounts to the original ECU mount, and then I'm bolted on there with my Speeduino ECU. I've started just hacking off these wires here, and then, as I mentioned in the last section, I've got splices. Got splices with these crimp connectors, and they're shrink tubed. These white wires are the coil wires. These are all new because the old harness didn't have those in there. I extended the wires for the throttle position sensor and the idle air control. I'm running a Honda map sensor that I had laying around. It's actually from a 03 Honda Insight, in case you were interested. The nice thing about the Honda map sensor is those will read about 10 psi. So if I add some boost at some point, we'll have a little bit of room there to at least get it running on that. Yeah, so this is going along pretty well. I think the only thing I have left is The cam sensor wires need to get brought up here and spliced in. I'm going to just use the old wires that were going to the OptiSpark, because there was a high res and a low res signal and a power and a ground, which is, you know, basically a cam position and a crank position and a power and a ground, which is what my new sensors need. So I just made these little pigtails up here, and I'll splice in over here, and then I'll have everything wired back to my ECU connector. And I'm not super far away from firing this thing up. Yeah, it's coming along pretty good. It's coming along pretty good. I've got the fuel rails out because I had a fuel leak. Here's kind of what my harness looks like for the wires I actually needed. All this stuff is spare, so that'll just get cut off and shrink tubed and packed in with this boom, and this will get covered. It'll probably get routed more like this here, so I can get to my brake fluid reservoir. Alternator is wired. The coils are wired. I tested those. I can actually show you how those work. Hold tight for a minute. Actually, I can't because my fuse is out for the fuel pump and the coils. So I'll show you that at a different time. Trust me, the coils all work and everything appears to be wired correctly. I had a couple of fuel injectors that weren't clicking when I applied the test signal to them. So I still need to swap those out. So as I deal with my fuel rail leak, I'll put those different injectors in that I found. What I wanted to show you is I've got some sane values here in Tuner Studio. Throttle position works. See, now look at that. Throttle position works. And then map sensor works. The intake air temp works. Coolant temp works. I am able to crank it and get RPM and full sync. So once I get my fuel stuff sorted out, this thing should start. So that'll be pretty exciting. Next video, Corvette running, maybe.